You're lying in bed at night, phone in your hand, staring at a message you typed and erased 5 times. You know sending it will cost you your peace. You also know not sending it will hurt. That pause right there, that silent moment before you decide, is where everything changes in your life, even if you don't see it yet. I want you to stay with me, because later I'm going to explain why this exact moment reveals more about the relationship than all the conversations you've already had. And I'm also going to explain why the person on the other side of that silence feels your absence more deeply than they ever felt your effort. We'll come back to both of those. Right now, understand this. Silence is not weakness for you. It just feels that way because you care. You're someone who connects through presence, through words, through emotional honesty. When there is distance, your instinct is to close the gap, to check in, to clarify, to make sure nothing is broken. That instinct is beautiful, but when it's given to the wrong dynamic, it slowly drains your power. Silence feels hard because it goes against your nature. It feels unnatural to stop explaining yourself. It feels cruel to pull back when someone seems confused or distant. But what you're actually doing when you stay silent is giving reality room to speak. And reality always tells the truth faster when you stop interrupting it. Here's something most people don't tell you. The person who benefits from you chasing clarity will never rush to give it. When you keep reaching out, you remove the pressure for them to show up fully. Your effort becomes a cushion. Your empathy becomes the buffer that protects them from their own behavior. And that's where chasing quietly lowers your position. Not because you're unworthy, not because you're too much, but because chasing teaches your nervous system that love must be earned through endurance. It teaches you to negotiate your needs instead of honoring them. Over time, you stop asking, is this good for me? And start asking, how do I keep this from ending? I'm going to explain later why this pattern forms so easily in emotionally intelligent people and how it gets mistaken for loyalty. For now, just notice how your body feels when you're the one always reaching. Tight chest, restless thoughts, a constant scanning for signs. That's not love. That's survival. Here's the spine line I want you to hold on to throughout this entire conversation. Distance reveals what words try to hide. Let me say it again, slowly. Distance reveals what words try to hide. When you stop chasing, you're not playing a game. You're removing the distraction. You're letting the relationship stand on its own legs. And if it can't, that information is invaluable. Even if it hurts, silence is powerful because it forces truth to the surface. Without your emotional labor filling the gaps, patterns become obvious. Effort becomes visible. Care becomes measurable. Not through promises, but through behavior. This is why no contact feels unbearable at first. Your mind rushes to fill the silence with stories. Maybe they're busy, maybe they're processing, maybe you're overreacting, and maybe you've been telling yourself those same stories for a long time to avoid a truth you weren't ready to face. Chasing keeps hope alive, but it also keeps clarity away. You lower your position every time you explain yourself to someone who isn't listening. Every time you send another message just to ease the discomfort of not knowing. Every time you accept half answers because full honesty feels too risky for them. And here's the part that stings. The more you chase, the less you're met. Not because you're unlovable, but because you've removed the urgency for mutual effort. When someone knows you'll stay emotionally available no matter what, they have no reason to rise. I promised you curiosity loops, so here's the second one. Later, I'm going to explain why people often feel safer losing an empath than facing their own emotional limitations. It sounds strange, but once you understand it, so much of your past will make sense. For now, come back to yourself. Silence isn't about punishing them. It's about protecting you. It's about giving your nervous system a break from chasing something that moving away. It's about seeing what remains when you stop carrying the connection alone. Distance reveals what words try to hide. Notice how different this feels from giving up. Giving up feels bitter and reactive. Stepping back feels grounded, quiet, said yes, but also honest. There's a subtle self-respect in it, a sense that you're no longer willing to abandon yourself to keep someone close. You were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong person. And this is where part one needs to pause. Because once you stop reaching, something begins to shift internally. Your attachment changes. Your focus changes. Your energy changes. And that internal shift is what we need to talk about next, before we talk about anything external at all. When you step back, something important happens inside you first. Your nervous system, which has been trained to stay alert, to monitor tone, timing, and silence, finally gets a pause. At first it panics. It asks, what if I lose him forever? What if this silence is the mistake? That panic is not intuition, it is withdrawal from overgiving. You've been supplying emotional energy for so long that stopping feels like danger. But it isn't, it's recalibration. The psychology of stepping back is simple and uncomfortable. When you remove your constant availability, you stop regulating the connection for both of you. You stop being the emotional thermostat. This forces the relationship to find its own temperature. And here's the truth most people avoid. If the connection only stays warm when you keep adjusting it, it was never stable to begin with. Stepping back doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop compensating. You stop filling in the silence with explanations. You stop soothing discomfort that isn't yours to soothe. That's when reality steps forward. Distance reveals what words try to hide. Now let's talk about what happens in their mind when you stop reaching out, because this is where people get confused. At first, many feel relief. Not because they don't care, but because they no longer have to respond, decide, or face something they've been avoiding. That relief is temporary. It's the quiet before awareness. Then something shifts. The space you created becomes noticeable. Your absence removes the emotional mirror they were used to. They start to feel the weight of their own actions without your energy buffering it. Questions arise. Why isn't she texting? Why isn't she checking in? Is she pulling away? Did I misjudge how much she needed me? And here's the part you need to hear clearly. This shift only happens when the silence is clean. No passive messages, no indirect signals, no checking their stories and reacting. Clean silence creates contrast, and contrast creates reflection. Distance reveals what words try to hide. For some, that reflection leads to effort. For others, it leads to avoidance, both outcome information. Silence doesn't create behavior. It reveals it. Now let's address the hardest part for you. The urge, the moment your fingers itch to type. The surge of anxiety that says just one message won't hurt. This is where self-respect is built or broken in small moments. When the urge hits, don't fight it with willpower alone. That usually fails. Instead, interrupt the loop. Stand up, change rooms, drink water, put your phone face down and set a timer for 10 minutes. Tell yourself you can text after the timer if it still feels true. Most urges peak and fall like a wave. If you don't feed it, it passes. Another practical step is to write the message, but don't send it. Put it in a note. Say everything. Be honest. Get it out of your system, then read it back and ask one question. Am I sending this to connect or to relieve my anxiety? If it's a second, it's not the right moment. You also need a rule. No texting when you feel dysregulated. If your heart is racing, if you're rehearsing outcomes, if you're hoping for reassurance, pause. Connection built on emotional imbalance always costs you more later. Distance reveals what words try to hide. Instead of chasing, your daily focus needs to shift inward, but not in a vague self-care way. I mean, concrete redirection of energy. Start with your body. Walk, stretch, breathe deeply. When your body feels grounded, your mind follows. You've been living in anticipation. Bring yourself back into the present. Then focus on structure. Routine stabilizes emotions. Wake up at the same time. Eat regularly. Move your body. Do one thing each day that creates visible progress, even if it's small. Order creates safety when connection feels uncertain. Also, return your attention to places where your effort is returned. Friendships, work, creative outlets. Not as distraction, but as reminders. You are not invisible when you stop chasing. You are simply choosing to be seen where presence is mutual. There is something deeply important happening here. When you stop chasing, you begin to feel the grief you postponed. Not just grief for them, but grief for how much of yourself you gave away hoping to be chosen. Let that grief move through you. It's not weakness, it's integration. Distance reveals what words try to hide. You might notice another change to your perception sharpens. You start seeing patterns you ignored. Delays, deflections, inconsistencies. You're no longer inside the fog of effort. You're standing on solid ground, observing instead of pleading. And this is where your power quietly returns. Not loud power, not manipulative power, calm power. The kind that doesn't need to announce itself. The kind that says, I will not chase what chooses distance from me. If they reach out during this phase, you'll feel it. The difference between genuine curiosity and empty checking. We'll talk about how to respond later. For now, your job is simple and difficult. Stay consistent. Let silence do the work you were doing alone for too long. Distance reveals what words try to hide. This isn't about proving a point. It's about protecting your nervous system long enough for truth to emerge. And once it does, you'll be in a very different position to decide what comes next. If they come back, this is where many empaths lose themselves again, not because they're weak, but because hope rushes in faster than clarity. So listen carefully. If they come back, your job is not to resume where things left off. Your job is to slow everything down. You don't reward disappearance with instant access. You don't explain your silence. You don't apologize for choosing dignity. You listen. You observe. You let their actions speak longer than their words. Anyone can return with emotion. Very few return with consistency. So you keep your standards quiet but firm. You notice if they make space for you. You notice if they ask real questions. You notice if effort appears without you prompting it. Boundaries here are not ultimatums. They are pace. You respond, but you don't rush. You engage, but you don't overgive. You stay connected to yourself while you're connected to them. That's the difference now. You're no longer negotiating your worth in exchange for closeness. Distance reveals what words try to hide. If they push for things to go back to normal, that's information. Normal was you carrying more than your share. If they respect the slower pace, that's information too. Real connection can tolerate time. It doesn't collapse under it. Now, if they don't come back, I want you to hear this without turning it into self-blame. Their absence is not your failure. It is their answer. Silence reveals truth either way. Either it brings clarity through return and repair, or it brings clarity through absence. Both are forms of truth. One just hurts more at first. If they don't come back, closure doesn't come from one last message. It comes from acceptance. Acceptance that you didn't imagine the imbalance. Acceptance that love cannot be sustained by one nervous system working overtime. Acceptance that walking away with dignity is not loss. It is alignment. You don't need to villainize them to move forward. You don't need to rewrite the story. You simply stop waiting. Waiting keeps you emotionally attached to an outcome that isn't choosing you. Letting go is not forgetting. It's releasing the hope that kept you stuck. Distance reveals what words try to hide. Moving forward means reclaiming your energy fully, not rushing into something new, not proving how healed you are, just returning home to yourself. You rebuild trust with your own signals. When something feels off, you listen. When effort feels one-sided, you pause. When connection feels safe, you open slowly. Grief may still come in waves. Let it. Grief is the cost of loving deeply, but it no longer gets to decide your behavior. You can feel sadness without abandoning yourself. That's growth. Here's the fast truth of everything we've talked about. Silence is not a tactic. It's a boundary. Chasing drains your power. Stepping back restores it. If they come back with consistency, you meet them with standards. If they don't, you meet yourself with respect. Either way, you win clarity. Distance reveals what words try to hide. One clear action step I want you to take after this. Choose one boundary you will not cross anymore. Just one. Maybe it's no texting when you feel anxious. Maybe it's no explaining yourself to someone who keeps misunderstanding you. Write it down. Keep it simple. And honor it for the next 7 days. That's enough to shift your center of gravity back to you. You are not here to convince someone to value you. You are here to recognize where your value is already met. Calm power doesn't chase. It doesn't beg. It stands steady and self-respecting and lets truth walk toward it or walk away. Distance reveals what words try to hide. If this message spoke to you, the next video will help you understand what happens internally when an empath finally stops abandoning themselves and chooses peace instead.